office real estate. And Daniel's going to be the host of the show, and I'm basically going to be chiming in. We're not necessarily going to agree on everything, but we're going to give you something to think about. We'll go through 5 pieces, 5 stories. We handpicked them, and we're going to tell you whether or not we think it's a buy, it's a sell, or it's a hold, and then you can form your own opinion. Daniel, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Peter. What's going on? We got a wild show for everybody today. As Peter alluded to, format of our show is we pick 5 topics. And in those 5 topics, we got about 7 minutes with each topic. If we go a little bit over, that's okay. We've allocated time for that. But for those of you who are joining us, you are with us for 1 hour of fun under the sun here in South Florida. We talk real estate, no nonsense, as Peter likes to say. And let's kick it off, Peter. So a Miami Herald story broke out. I think it was actually New Times because they pick a little racier things than the Herald likes to pick at. But the Brickell Key girlies are upset because they can't cross the bridge anymore to do their hot mom walks, drinking their matchas. But if you're a resident of Brickell Key, and I've always been a fan of Brickell Key for this reason, if you're a resident of Brickell Key and you pay into that HOA or maybe you rent, you can still walk around the island. Why is that? It's because they're starting the demolition of the Mandarin Oriental. For those of you who don't know, the Mandarin Oriental opened back in, I think, 2000. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Peter. But closed just this past May. It's going to come down, and they're going to build 2 towers. Ultra luxury. It's going to be Mandarin Oriental's flagship property. One is going to be primarily residential or completely residential. The other one's going to be a mix of a hotel condo. It's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be nice, and it's scheduled to deliver at the end of 2029. Scheduled. So, if that's Miami scheduling, maybe we'll see something in 2031. I don't know. You can ask the guys who are doing the Signature Bridge project. But Peter, what's going on? What have you read outside the lines or in between the lines with Brickell Key?
So to give everybody context, when Miami was created back at the end of the 19th century, going into the 20th century, and on the south side you had the Brickells, north side you had the Tuttle, Julia Tuttle. Lo and behold, Henry Flagler brings his train down here. City's incorporated 1896. He puts up his Royal Palm Hotel. So the Brickells are on the south side. They're running a trading post. Old man Brickell and Mary Brickell running a trading post. And, there's some concerns. There's some issues. There's some potential. If you dredge the river, you can actually make a port. And now you can start to trade. So they decide to go ahead and dredge the river, somewhere in the ballpark, 6-7 feet deep. They take it to, I don't know what they took it to, but now it's effectively 15 feet. So when they were dredging the river, they needed some place to dump all of the riverbed, if you will. So that's how it became. So they dredged the river. They took all of the fill, if you will, mucky sand and sediment and everything else, and they had to decide where to go. So Julia Tuttle's on the north side with old man Flagler, Henry Flagler. South side is Mary Brickell. So they said, you know what? Let's put it on the south side. So they dump it right outside Mary Brickell's trading post. A lot of this is according to Casey Paquette. He's a local historian. He does a show called The History of Miami.
Yeah, he's got a great Substack, right?
Yeah, fantastic Substack, as well as Paul George. He's a local historian, taught over at Miami-Dade College or something. So they dump it all there, and it's just sitting there. And according to press reports and stories I read, Mary Brickell's complaining because it stinks. You got all this seabed stinking. Fast forward, lo and behold, it's purchased by the Clawton family. So old man Clawton's got the island, and they put a seawall around it. It's officially called Clawton Island, but the reason people call it Brickell Key is that the first condo project to go up there is called Brickell Key. So Brickell Key 1, Brickell Key 2, 2 towers that go up there. Lo and behold, a group out of Hong Kong comes in called Swire Properties. They come in, they pretty much accumulate most of the island, and they build a whole variety of things, including that Mandarin Oriental Hotel that you were talking about, Daniel. Well, now they decided, let's go ahead and cash in. So they're tearing down this Mandarin Oriental Hotel, which is, 20 years or so. And so they can put up 2 towers. But what's interesting about Brickell Key, or Clawton Island officially, is it's triangular shaped. And what they did is they did a bay walk all around it. So people like to go there and walk. You can exercise, or maybe you just want to be a voyeur and watch some of the people wandering by. Whatever the case may be.
Say, Peter.
So in anticipation of the Mandarin going up, the Miami-Dade County? No, City of Miami. They're going to repair this little bridge that connects the mainland over to what was basically just the leftovers from the dredging of the river. 52-year-old bridge and what they need to fix, A, because of traffic, but B, because of, the new project going up. So that's what's going on. So I guess numerous women took to social media, TikTok especially, and the Miami New Times, they wrote a piece about it, about how all these women who are all decked out in their Lululemon gear, they can't get across the bridge because the work is being done now. They don't know where the hell they're going to walk. So they're looking for recommendations. They're looking for recommendations. Where should we walk? I mean, some people are saying, hey, listen, go down by the Dade County Courthouse, or maybe others say go up to Edgewater. Maybe you go down to the Grove. You do Key Biscayne. So this is the big drama going on this week in Miami. Where are what they call, let me get the proper name because I don't want to be accused of anything. So the headline of the New Times story, which was just brilliant, and by the way, it's written by a woman called Naomi Feinstein. The headline is, the girlies are heartbroken over Brickell Key's Baywalk closure, and they need to know where to walk. They need to know where to walk. Sorry, Daniel, I'm a little bit too excited. I hit my monitor. So Daniel, the question to you is, where should the girlies, according to New Times, where should the girlies be walking now?
You got to go to. Well, no. Listen, to their credit, a wonderful infrastructure project that was undertaken, I don't know how many years ago, but they just completed it. That Dog Beach, right outside, right just past the Key Biscayne toll. They ripped out all of those invasive trees. I'm pretty sure they were invasive. My sister would clue me in on this, but they ripped out all these trees. They redid a seawall, and it's quite nice. It's designed poorly because if you go inwards towards Key Biscayne and then you go counterclockwise around under the bridge, you can't complete the loop. So if they would have spent, I don't know, an extra millions of dollars, and taxpayer money, so they don't care anyway, but they could have just completed the loop, and then you can walk around. And it's nice, it's safe, it's out of traffic, but you have to turn your ass around and come back all the way around. And so what? Okay, you get a little bit more exercise, but it's quite nice. I applaud it. Yeah, that's where they should go. Is that all we got to say about Brickell Key? I feel like there was a little more there. I was on a boat recently, just passing Brickell Key, and I noticed that Tequesta and you know what? I'm going to misspeak. I think it is Brickell Key 1 that they're doing an amazing job on the structure of that building on the outside. I mean, it's an old enough building, and it probably does need some structural work. But all of these older condo buildings, we always talk about vintage condo buildings, and they're getting these assessments. Well, so many of these buildings in Brickell Key fall under these milestone inspections. Two that I'm going to pull out that is Carbonell and Asia. They don't need their milestone inspections yet because I think they were finished in 2006 and 2008 respectively. But all of these other buildings, including Tequesta, including Brickell Key 1, are under a magnifying glass to our, how many regulators are there? 65 regulators for 29,000 some odd condo buildings in Florida?
Yeah, after the last budget, the 2024 budget, Florida budget, they allocated enough cash to hire 65 regulators to oversee 28,250.
65 regulators. So basically, you can get away with murder in one of these buildings.
Well, Daniel, you mentioned, so if you think of Brickell Key, again, it's triangular shape. So the point, or the tip of the spear, if you will, would be the south side. That's where they're going to be putting up the Mandarin. So up on the north side of the island, you're going to run into a project called Tequesta 1, 2, and 3. What was interesting is, and this is for the old timers. What was interesting is there was a hustle going on by a city inspector in the 90s, along with contractors. They were basically paying off people in the city of Miami to sign off on building and zoning stuff. And the same engineers from the city who were involved with it, they also were involved with, if memory serves me correct, that stackable retail that's up at Dadeland Mall. You know that stackable where they have like a Target, they have a sports store?
Tremendous structural issues with that building.
Yeah. So so Tequesta 1, 2, and 3, or at least one of the three, at least. It was a big controversy in the 90s about what was going on. Are these buildings actually safe? So, it's interesting that they're being forced now to go through on their whatever kind of inspection they're doing. I don't know. Yeah, maybe they're in and around their milestone inspection. But again, this is some of the things that we kind of, we didn't even pay attention to back then. Now, if something like that were to happen, it'd be a completely different story.
Peter, your audio's cracking out.
It's cracking up. Okay.
Whoops. It's all right. You're coming back.
All right.
Let me get a check 1, 2 from Peter.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
There
Peter.
he is again. I couldn't do this without you, Peter. That puts it. Wow, we are being very honest with time today. So and part of our format, guys, is that we buy, sell, hold on any one of these given topics. So as we move down this list, Peter and I are going to either buy it, we're going to sell it, it's BS, or you know what? We don't know. And by the way, just like any adult, we can change our minds and we don't have to agree on everything. So on Brickell Key's little running path, should they do something about it? Or you know what? Screw them. You didn't want to pay out to live in Brickell Key. Go walk all the way to Key Biscayne.
You know, I think it's a sell from my perspective, because I think the girlies, according to the Miami New Times, I think they need to do what everybody else needs to do right now, is pivot. They need to change. They need to figure out a different way. And who knows, maybe they'll be much better off for it. And they know they can ultimately come back once the work is done. And they're going to be able to see all the construction going on the south end of Brickell Key. So I'm a sell. I think they're blown out of proportion. I think they need to pivot.
I'm a sell too. You know what? If you want to walk around Brickell Key, give me a call and we'll get you a condo in Brickell Key. We're selling that idea. But speaking of transactions, and this is our next topic, Miami has been the center of crypto hoopla and headlines since the pandemic, really. And now developers, because there's so much competition, a new way to market your property and pre-construction is, well, we accept crypto as payment, which I do think is crazy because, well, it's just so volatile. And yes, developers sometimes allow you to put up securities and equities if you have a large portfolio and you don't want to put $500,000 deposit for a condo reservation that's not going to deliver for a few years. They allow you to do that. So the argument is, well, why not crypto? Well, because up until fairly recently, crypto's been sort of this outlier asset. And now, because of the friendliness of the White House towards crypto, I think it's more substantiated than just a rumor that Fannie and Freddie are going to start recognizing crypto as an asset so that you can take loans that are collateralized by your crypto holdings. What does that spell out, Peter, for transactions? Is it just a shiny page on a marketing presentation, or is this really going to spur more transactions?
Well, you know, Daniel, the reason that the crypto came up for one, the current presidential administration is really pushing forward with it. The previous administration looked at it as if it ought to be governed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. The new presidential administration says no, it's something completely different. You don't need to get the SEC involved. So they did pass some laws. They're permitting it to basically be pegged to the U.S. dollar. So anybody who's out there selling or using this stuff, it needs to be backstop. It needs to have money. There's got to be some sort of ratio where they have it on hand in case there's a run on that particular crypto, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of the big picture. Now, I will remind you, during the pandemic era, we had a mayor, or we actually still have a mayor, and we'll see how much longer it goes because they're trying to add an additional year without getting voted in, and there's a lawsuit. But that's kind of a different story.
I'm caught up in my words, but a judge just came out and said that they're having that election.
They're having that election, and basically what it is, everybody, is the city of Miami is trying to change its schedule for city commission, and I don't know if mayor's involved with it or not, but basically so it's pegged to a bigger election. They always have these off-time type of elections. Nobody shows up. There's 10,000 votes, and I'm being facetious, and as a result, very few people are voting, and therefore you kind of get the leadership view that you have. So there's this idea, let's go ahead and change the election. We'll peg it so when people go to the polls for the bigger elections, they're able to vote on this as well. So and the way to do it was basically to give everybody who was sitting an additional year, so add on to their term, basically, so this would happen. But that being said, so Francis Suarez, who's currently the mayor of Miami, and likes this idea about getting an extra year without having to be voted in for it, and I think he's term limited out. So what he did is he was marketing Miami and was marketing Florida during the pandemic. Remember, when the rest of the country was under lockdown, we announced in Florida, you can come here, you don't have to wear a mask, and you get to twerk on a police car. Many people flooded in here. And one of the areas that they were marketing to was up in Silicon Valley. And we somehow got into a pissing match or a competition with the mayor of New York City to see who was going to be the crypto capital of the United States, not the financial capital of the United States, like Ken Billions has said, but rather the crypto capital. All kind of events went on down here, Bitcoin events. They have a bull that was donated. It's placed outside of Miami-Dade College, right across the street from the federal penitentiary. Fittingly or unfittingly, you play it how you want. So crypto's kind of been out there. It's been this thing that people have been talking about, and now suddenly this week, because of recent passage of legislation.
Oh, we lost Peter. Peter, you got to get it back in here, or we got to buy Peter a new computer. Maybe we should just start a Patreon for Peter to buy a new computer. Peter, there he is. He's back.
Is it my computer, really?
Oh yeah, it's your computer. Wait, did you hear everything I just said? I just told the whole world that we're gonna start a GoFundMe for Peter's new computer fund.
The computer's like 8 months now with the tariffs. I don't know what a computer would cost. So, what was the last thing I said? It was kind of a long answer, but what was the last thing I said that you heard?
What? I'll pick up where you left off. So it's fitting that the crypto bull is in front of the federal penitentiary.
Yep, fitting in. Oh, so the reason we're talking about it right now today is suddenly there's a brokerage out in the Durrell area that's launching a crypto division.
So
they're going to have brokers they're going to have brokers who are going to specialize in anybody who wants to trade their crypto for real estate.
Which by the way, come on, it's a press release. It's specialized in crypto, like it's a transaction.
Well, no, but the Real Deal did a story, and then in addition,
The Real
Deal did a story, and in addition, there is a condo project that's out there marketing the fact they got pre-construction, and sales are very strong. But if you want to buy with crypto, we're willing to accept it. This project called Icon Beach is what they're calling it. So the point is, you're starting to hear a lot more about crypto. In terms of anybody who's wondering, who's at home and they're wondering what is crypto today. Well, Bitcoin is coming in somewhere in the ballpark about 113. And I will tell you, it's down 5% in the last
is my point.
Week
okay,
or
so yeah, a week ago it was at 120. So
yep,
these real estate transactions, yes, a wire is a wire. It goes, and I get the money. But if I can't turn that into fiat currency, into U.S. dollars within a few hours, you mean I can lose 5% of that deposit?
Yeah, or what they would say is that 113 can go to 120, and now you would have just made 5%.
Yeah, but this is totally speculative. You know what? I know we're not even up on time. We got 2 minutes on that, but you can talk for another 2 minutes.
I got more than
I got more out of that.
I got more. So what I can tell you, back in 2016, and I'm going to put on my report. I used to be a journalist. I'm going to put on my reporter hat. 2016, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network Treasury comes out with an order saying, if you're buying all cash, meaning no financing, in Manhattan or in Miami-Dade County, only 2 places in the country, if you're buying without financing, the title company's got to be able to figure out who the ultimate end user is because of money laundering, anti-money laundering efforts. The real pushback that you get with crypto, and I own some Bitcoin. I have it through Cash App. I'm not going to show the code or anything. I don't want anybody stealing it. But that being said, so the thing with something like Bitcoin or crypto, it's potentially, if you listen or you read some of the stuff, it's a way to kind of get around all of the issues associated with anti-money laundering laws.
You're talking about know your customer, KYC.
Yeah, could be KYC, or it could be some of the orders that came down from FinCEN related to closings when there's no mortgage involved. Because the mortgage, typically the banks have to do the due diligence. But if you're able to close without financing, right. Yeah, exactly. So this is something to watch. Now, if you're in the condo market in South Florida today, you want crypto. Why? Because nothing's trading. Well, it's not trading at the pace it was. Now, if you're somebody who's on the buy side, you don't necessarily want crypto involved, because that's simply going to bring in other types who might be willing to go over and above because they either want to burn their crypto or they want to clean cash.
And that brings us right up to our time. Wow, we are being wonderfully honest on time today. I already told you that I'm selling this. Are you buying it?
No, I'm a sell, and why? Because I think of where the price is. I think it's probably going to pull back. Some of the crypto I bought, I got like 16,000 is what it was trading at, if you remember back in 2022 or so. So that's how dramatic it goes. Basically, it's up 100,000 roughly.
Well, I just think I just think it's a shiny page on a marketing presentation because there's just so much competition. Oh, well, maybe we're not actually 70% sold. Maybe we're 45% sold, and we need to market to other people.
I'm with you on that. I think the reason you're seeing this is that they're trying to figure out which rock can we pick up in order to find some would-be buyers in this
Yeah,
particular
why
market.
don't you start accepting some AirPods as payment? I'll send you 500,000 AirPods.
What was the New Times story or the Herald story? People are trading mangoes. They were bartering mangoes for different type of
I
product.
think that the mango market is solidly constant, especially if you're getting some of these really sweet varieties.
With
I
none
think
of the hairs in them.
Yeah, I think we should do a study on the correlation of mango season production with real estate and see if those correlate together.
Hey, that's something to look for.
That's something to look for. Look out for a Substack article from Peter and I regarding the correlation between the mango season and the hot buying season for real estate. But that puts us over time. We are clearly a sell on crypto's future in real estate. This is fun. This is fun. Transit station neighborhood development. That is a mouthful. That's like a lot of syllables. But we're going to call it the TSND. TSND, what is that? So the TSND is an ordinance that exists in planning in the city of Miami that allows, and they've just amended it, this is why it's news, it allows for more density within 1 mile, a 1 mile radius of fixed rail, right? And so last week, the Miami City Commission, and not to use a pun, but I feel like they railroaded this amendment through. And they carved out, by the way, these neighborhood conservation district, or NCDs. I'm pretty sure that's the acronym for it. And what's an NCD? An NCD is basically just an area where the residents are wealthy and powerful enough to carve out their neighborhoods in the name of conservation. And this is especially true in a place like Coconut Grove, where the entirety of Coconut Grove is carved out as a neighborhood conservation district. So if you're a developer, Peter, we have lunch at Flanagan's on 27th a lot. So hey, paparazzi guys, everybody watching, if Peter and I occasionally have lunch at Flanagan's, don't bother us, please. I'm kidding. You can bother us.
Yeah, but we might need to rethink that. Flanagan sent out a notice via email that the price of ribs is going up. So they put everybody on alert. So we might have to we might have to find a cheaper alternative. Maybe like Mary's Cafe or something. Although they just got
Mary's
named
Cafe.
the best steak.
I got to work in the afternoons. I can't go to Mary's Cafe. I haven't been to Mary's Cafe before 1 o'clock in the morning since 2012.
The New Times just called Mary's Cafe, which is right by the Coconut Grove Metro Station, the best steak sandwich in all of South Florida.
Wow, that's
what they
a
said.
Bold statement coming from the New Times. I don't buy it. That's a topic for another day, but that's
maybe that's where
malarkey.
Maybe that's where the girlies, according to New Times, maybe they should walk towards Mary's Cafe so they can get in their steps because they can't go around Brickell Key.
I don't think those women are eating Mary's bunkum steaks, dude.
From what they say, it's worth eating, and you get extra steps in, so it's a push.
So the TSNDs, right? And I take cause on this because I think it's ridiculous. How can you carve out? You're saying in the entirety of the city of Miami, and it's fairly large. We got 400,000 residents, a nice footprint, and I'm all for conservation if it's relevant, right? If we need to carve out a little pocket here, a little pocket there, but for the residents of Coral Gate to carve out their entire little area, which they carved the crap out of it because there are only 2 entrances to Coral Gate, just south of 16th Street and just above Coral Way behind the Sears. They've carved that out so they can't build high density. Live Local has something to say about that, but that's for another day. And then the entirety of Coconut Grove, which is the remaining 3 districts of these NCDs. Now, I don't know about you, Peter, but you can't possibly say that this part of the Grove over here, where Flanagan's on 27th Avenue corridor is, should have the same conservation and zoning rules as like Poinciana down in South Grove. It's close to a transit station. I think public transit's a big deal. I think we have an affordable housing crisis going on. So if we can build more, why not make it easier to build more? And by the way, let's do it in the name of workforce housing, because the TSND zoning is for workforce housing. It's not as powerful as Live Local. Live Local forces developers to allocate 40% of their proposed projects to affordable housing or workforce housing. This regulation, this amendment, lowers that number in half to 20%. So I think what we're going to start seeing is a lot of what we're calling these mullet buildings. Party on the bottom, professional on the top. So affordable on the bottom and more luxurious on the top. And that would allow for developers to build up to 12 stories within 1 mile radius of fixed rail, except in these carve-out districts, which includes that corridor on 27th Avenue, which I think needs to be redeveloped. And redevelop it however you want, but to say that it's a conservation district, come on.
Listen, let me make sure I have the boundary right. So you're saying if we look at 27th and US 1, just because Coconut Grove Metro Station there. So everything on the south side, the Grove, in and around Burger King, Crooks and Crooks, Flanagan's, all of that is protected, so it's no-go. Correct?
Right. Well, I mean, because look at Grove Station, that big development where they put the Total Wine on the Target. That's a big tall tower. That's fair game.
Yep. So if you think about the mile, so Mary's Cafe, which is 27th, it's just a little bit farther north of it, all in and around there, except if you're what, east of Silver Bluff. I'm assuming, is Silver Bluff off limits, or can they play in Silver Bluff as well?
Well, I mean, you can do it if it's not zoned single family residential.
If it's not, okay,
on the 27th Avenue corridor, you have tall buildings going, all the way up. But south of there, you can't build that high. I mean, the Well they're building is 8 stories. I think Glass House, which is an ultra luxury development that they built right around the corner from the Well. It's the only new ultra luxury development there on 27th. I think that's 5 stories with a rooftop. So it's there's no tall buildings there. But then once you get to Bayshore, you have that's where Grosvenor House, you have Grove Hill, you have all of these luxurious buildings right there on the bay
and all that. Yeah. So I, the part that catches my attention is, if you think of South Beach, when you go into South Beach on the MacArthur Causeway, as soon as you come in on the MacArthur, you're driving. On one side, you see the cruise ships. The other side, you see the islands. You go past Star Island. Then you get over into South Beach. On the south side, or if you make a right going towards Smith and Walensky's, you're going to get into south of 5th or Sophie. If you go to the left and you go north, you're going to get into basically the Art Deco district. I've always looked at South Beach, which I think is comparable to this situation. South Beach, if you were south of 5th, this was for the people with money who tended to be older, but yet they wanted to be by the young, active people who tend to be better looking, which was to the north. It was north of 5th Street in the Art Deco district. It's almost like that's what they're creating here for the Grove. So the Grove would kind of be off limits, the traditional Grove, and then everything in and around, say north of US 1, all of that is probably going to be teardowns. And if you can replace all these duplexes.
I've always said that they're going to remarket Silver Bluff and maybe not Silver Bluff, but the area west of
between 27th and 37th. All the way up to the Grove.
They're going to redevelop that and just call it North
all
Grove.
of it.
Yeah,
all teardowns.
It's all zone duplex. They're putting these. You love to point out that they're asking over $1.5 million for these duplexes.
1.7. 1.7 a door.
It was 1.7. It was 50-50. And to your 1% rule, they're not renting those for $17,000 a month. So they're not making their money off of them. You know what? I have a friend who purchased there for, I think, about $1.2 million. It's quite nice. It's not, you don't have the tree canopies that you have in Coconut Grove, which is a different story for City of Miami.
Yeah, but you got 80 cars per property and you have unlimited chickens. So that's the push-pull.
Unlimited chickens, but you can't kill them. You can't eat them though, right?
No, but you call the county, they show up, they pull up in a van, guys jump out with nets. I have video of it, and they chase the chickens down the street until they catch them.
Can you favorite that video for next week? Because I do want to see that.
Yeah, no, I will. I'll share it with you because I had called the county and they said no, and then one day I see these guys running down the street with nets catching chickens.
So speaking of municipal shenanigans, and this is leading us into our next topic. Are you a buy, sell, hold for the amendment on this TSND? And I'm going to suffix it with, it's not just if you agree with TSND, but is it being administered in good spirit, or
No,
is there
no, no.
something?
This is completely unfair. They're wealthy fat cats. Everything they have is protected and build it on the other side of US 1. I think it's completely unfair, but I think one of the driving forces behind this is the fact that if you remember during the Great Recession, and I bring this up over and over and over, the reason that the stadium for the Miami Marlins cost so much that the city of Miami's credit rating was junk bond. One of the reasons it was junk bond is because property values came down, and 2% of so you pay 2% property tax. A third goes to the city, a third goes to the county, a third goes to the school board. I think the city realizes you got this perfect area in and around the neighborhood we're talking around Mary's Cafe. If you can knock all that down and replace $500,000 duplexes with, $1.5, $1.7 million pair of townhouses, that's going to be more money in their coffers. So maybe they've learned from the last go around, but why are they favoring the fat cats who are living in Coconut Grove, which, by the way, some of the commissioners have places, current and former. So that's the part that's unfair. But building and higher density, I don't have a problem with. But I think Coconut Grove is so special. They need to protect that. And kudos to the Grovites who fight tooth and nail on anybody trying to trim a tree. I don't own there, so I love the drama.
But the entirety
of I respect
Grove,
what they're doing.
The whole thing, even where Flanny's is.
Just because I think we're losing, I mean, for instance, let's talk about Central Business District. Central Business District, downtown Miami. When I do my tours down there, dude, you want to kill yourself. It's horrible. I've been to Hong Kong where there's high density and people everywhere, but there's character. You go to the Central Business District off of A Street, this world
there's
center
an Apple
that they're
store.
peddling.
There's so much culture there. What are you talking about? There's 11?
There is nothing. It has no trees. It has nothing. I like these little neighborhoods like the Grove personally. So I'd say protect it. I realize the fat cats, but you know what they ought to do? Why don't they put in place a surcharge or a tax, just like Miami Downtown Development Authority does? They tax everybody within their district, then they can take the money and reinvest. Why don't they put in place a special tax for the Grove in order to protect it? Make it a push-pull, and some of the money that's made by giving them or exclusivity
goes into a commissioner's slush fund. Oh, that's not what you were going to say.
Well, I mean, I'm sure part of it, there'll be a leakage, if you will, of that. But why not take some of that cash and do other things on the other side of town, or on the other side of US 1? That would make a hell of a lot more sense to me. But if you take it throughout the city of Miami, I think it's going to be a positive thing. But the Coconut Grove situation really smells of favoritism and probably somebody getting greased.
I too am selling it. Wow, we got a lot of red on that board today. And I think we're going to be selling this too, but I don't want to give away any spoilers. The Olympia Theater, possible future site for a Pitbull back school that uses the acronym SLAM. For those of you watching who don't know or have never been to the Olympia Theater is actually on the National Register of Historic Places since 1984. And the background of this story is that, and Peter would call him Old Man Gusman. Old Man Gusman, back in 1975, gave this theater to the MPA. The MPA is the Miami Parking Authority. And why on God's green earth would you give something to the Miami Parking Authority? Because even 50 years ago in 1975, you couldn't trust the city commissioners as far as you could throw them. And they were arguably fatter back then, so not very far at all. And so he gave the theater to the MPA. Now, in 2011, the MPA, after so many decades, finally comes out and says, God, we can't handle this, so we're going to give it to the city. And mind you, all the meanwhile, the theater has fallen into complete disrepair. I mean, complete disrepair. I pulled the financial records from what I could find. The latest was 2023. The income of this thing is like $344,000 a year. They don't make any money. It is a total bane on the existence of the balance sheet of the city of Miami, right?
Yeah, but dude, they haven't had it open for years. I used to go to the film festival every year. It was a sellout. Everybody would
they've had every opportunity. They've had half a century to get their shit together and do something with this. And so
it's beautiful theater.
It's beautiful. And now the Gusman family, because Old Man Gusman's, I think he's passed by now. He's certainly passed by now. And They, recognizing that the city's probably up to some funny business, they said, listen, the spirit of this donation was so that the public would use it, so that the community would use it. It would be an asset for the community, but it hasn't been. So they brought a buyer in, or buyer. The transaction is proposed to be about $10, but that's not the point. The point is that the theater needs a $30 to $40 million rehab. Where's the money? Is the city ever going to get around it? Because they have a awful track record with this. So they bring this buyer, this charter school, and yes, it's a charter school, so they will receive money from the state, about $9,000-ish per student. It's effectively going to be a 1,000-student school, right? That's the proposal, a 1,000-student school, so they will have an income from the state of about $9 million. Do we need more schools? Yeah, I think we need more schools. But what's more important is that it will be given back to the community as a community space. They'll have events there, and it'll be nice, and it'll be pretty. And downtown, as we keep on talking about, needs more stuff like this. So now, and with respect to the conservationists, I get it. You think this is a sham and the transparency, and yes, I think it should be done in a correct way. Has it been done in the correct way? Probably not. But this school will come in and make the necessary investment to bring the Olympia Theater back to the glamour of yesteryear. And I think it would be a good thing. And it's a burden on the city. So you know what? You had your shot. Get rid of it and let these guys come in and build something anew.
So let me give you a little bit of context. You know how I love context. Let me give you a little context because we do have 7 minutes, and you're very effective, and you convinced me. So I'm going to go with you. But before we do, let me tell you a little bit about Old Man Gusman. Old Man Gusman, I had heard this on a podcast. I don't know if it was Paul George or Casey Paquette. Remember, 2 local historians. If you guys like to know anything about Miami history, check them out. So one of them mentioned during a podcast about a little bit about how Maurice Gusman made his cash. And I'm looking at Wikipedia right here, and it says that he was actually born in the Russian Empire. He immigrated. He went through Ellis Island, ended up in Ohio. And in Ohio, he basically got into the rubber industry. And if you look at, and this is the part that was said, but I want to be able to refer it to Gemini, Google's Gemini. It says that Maurice Gusman was a prominent figure in the rubber industry and became a millionaire in Akron, Ohio. Condoms made from rubber and latex, they were becoming increasingly popular and widely available at the period that Maurice Gusman was involved in the rubber industry. So the reason I bring, and this according to Google Gemini AI, the reason I bring that up is if you go through and you listen to the history of Miami, this guy was in the rubber industry. He's actually making money selling condoms in and around whatever was going. And then he's got all this extra cash. He moves to Miami, and lo and behold, he goes ahead and he buys this theater, and then he gives back to the community, and he goes ahead and turns over the Gusman Theater, what would become the Olympia, turns it over, it becomes the Gusman Theater in 1975 or so. So like you said, the city of Miami has had it forever and ever and ever, and for the longest time they actually used it. There were some schools. I think they built some workforce housing above. I remember when I was a journalist.
I think there's about 80 units. They're not vacant. I mean, they're not occupied right now. They're vacant.
Yeah. But again, another this is a prime example. We have all this space that we're simply not utilizing. And whenever I see something like that, it makes me think of what you see in Miami Beach. So if you're a developer and you buy a piece of dirt and that piece of dirt ultimately is historically significant, you can either adhere to whatever the government says or you can let it run down so bad that the city tells you need to tear it down. See, and this is the rub, this is the hustle, this is the play. So for the Gusman family to step forward and to actually file this lawsuit against the city of Miami to try to stop this deal, it's no different than what you saw over at Crandon Park. Remember, the tennis tournament that goes on in Miami, that was built on Crandon Park, and they had written into the covenant or the agreement that when you're going to have this tennis tournament here, you're going to use this dirt. It can't do certain things. And lo and behold, what did the government try to do? I don't know if I think it was the county. They tried to change some stuff, and lo and behold, the family steps up and they say, no. So that's what the Gusman family is doing right here. I give them credit. There's got to be some way to carve it out so there's a little bit of a compromise because the building is special. The building needs to be protected. And hopefully Pitbull is going to do everything to try to build the community. I mean, remember what he's done. He's marketed the hell out of Miami. He's put it on the map in a lot of people's circles. Everybody really knew Miami.
He's Mr. Worldwide. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of this proposal.
He backstopped FIU, Florida International University Stadium.
It's Pitbull
Now, granted,
Stadium.
Granted, he gets but it was interesting. They did an analysis. They said one of the reasons that to do it is the amount of money he's giving. He could generate more because he gets a night or two a year. We can do whatever the hell he wants in it. So he can basically hold a stadium. He can hold an event, sell tickets, and basically recoup everything. But he also built that Glam. I don't know if you know where one of the Glam schools is. It's right there off of 12th and Northwest 7th, right by the Marlins ballpark. So when you're actually at Marlins ballpark, if you look out from the outfield, you actually see it. It's right next to some tire repair joint. There's a Nicaragua fritanga joint across the street, tire repair, all this type of stuff. But he's making commitments, so I give him credit. Hopefully he's going to do the right thing. But I just wonder in terms of, is there a way to preserve the history and what the Gusman family wanted, and at the same time let progress occur and have somebody like Pitbull take over the efforts and the steps that somebody like old man Gusman did.
Well, listen, they have to. They have to. It's on the national places. It's on the National Registry of Historic Places. You can't do a freaking thing to it aesthetically, or I mean, it's a felony. It's criminal. You can't do anything. But there's no law saying nobody says that a historically relevant place has to be anything. It can be a hotel, it could be a bar.
Yep.
They can do whatever they want to it as long as they don't change the aesthetics of it. What I think we're seeing here is sort of a municipal planned obsolescence. So let's just let this thing fall into such disrepair that you'll let us knock this down. And the Gusman family came in and said, that's bullshit. You're going to give it to these guys because that's what our dad wanted. And that's it. And I think smarter minds will prevail, and this will wind up going through. But I do commend any of the journalists, any of the Herald journalists, New Times, what have you, who have reported on this. And I do feel
Daniel. Let me ask you though. So this slam school that he has. Is this public or is this like one of these Setner types of school?
It's a charter school.
It's a charter school. Okay. So Pitbull makes money.
Yeah. The state. Yeah. It's like a
Montessori.
Center.
It's like a Setner school. It's something like that.
It's a charter school. Okay. So for every student, the state will pay them. I think it's about $9,100 per year.
So this is like a voucher. So you get a voucher.
No, it's not a voucher. It's a business. You can call it whatever you want, but
it's actually part of the Miami-Dade public school system.
It's a charter school.
Oh, so charter, but who governs a charter school? Is that a private owner or is that a governmental body like the school?
No. So and I'm not a superintendent of schools by any means, but it's a private school. They have their own private curriculum, but they receive funds from the state.
Got it. Okay, because they have a specialty of some sort. So the state says you can do it. Okay,
right. You can be a dance school. You can be a whatever school. You have to follow certain criteria to be a school, right? But it is a public-private sort of partnership. It's a charter school.
Okay, so this is different than the Setner schools. I don't know if you remember, but during the pandemic. They fired all the teachers.
I think the Setner school is a 100% private school. Do not quote me on that.
Yeah. Okay. So they're private. They were the ones who
wanted to build the sports complex.
Take over a park right there on Miami Avenue in about 20th, right where Cush is, and there's a gas station, not a gas station, but a fire department. And then there's a park there. So yeah, they were the ones that. So it's not like that, where they're basically charging a ton to everybody, and they have all these, according to press reports, all kind of really interesting requirements to get in. This is actually something that regular students can get in, and you don't have to come. You don't have to have a silver spoon.
There's not a $50,000 a year tuition, if that's what you're trying to say.
Okay. No. So I'm all about. They got to reach a compromise, as long as they preserve the Gusman and bring back the Miami International Film Festival. There, spectacular. Everybody's dressed up for it. So I am a buy on that as well. Not the shenanigans, though.
I'm not a buy on the shenanigans, but I'm a buy. I hope it does well. And this brings us to the last topic, which Peter was quite adamant. He had me on the horn at 3:55 to make sure that this was on the rundown. So it's controversial. So if you don't like controversy, you might want to tune out now. I'm just kidding. This is going to be all over your social media in the next few weeks. But what is the truth about jobs, Peter Zalewski?
So, economists and Wall Street and others, they make buying decisions based on data, statistics, algorithms, analysis, stuff like that. So the key is if you put in good information, you're going to be able to run it through whatever approach you have, and then you're going to come up with some sort of direction, kind of like a compass. If you pull out, like back in the day, you pull out a compass. If you ever went camping or anything, you're wandering around which way's north. If if you didn't know how to read the sun or the moon or the North Star, any of that type of stuff. So data is the most important part. It's the raw material, if you will, in order to make a decision on Wall Street, make a decision on anything. So especially when it comes to financials, it's critical. So what happened this week is we had a bunch of big numbers that came out that gave us a reflection of where the economy is headed. One of the numbers we had that came out was the GDP number. So in the first quarter, the GDP contracted. So some people thought, myself included, that we would be effectively in recession right now because Q2 GDP
Did you see? Measures. You said the R word. You can't say that, Peter.
Well, you can't say the R word, but I said it. So I thought we were going to be in there. That's how it felt to me. But the GDP numbers came out, and they said we grew. We grew by 3%. So lo and behold, something's going right apparently. So we don't have a chance of a recession. And if we were going to go into recession, we wouldn't even know about it till January. So that was one thing. Then we had all these corporate earnings come out, and all the corporate earnings, especially the Magnificent Seven, the big internet companies and stuff like that, AI companies blew it out of the water. So you start to think, okay, what is my base case scenario correct or not? We got all these tariffs. They keep getting delayed. Some deals have been reached. We don't have a deal with China. There's a lot of talk and stuff like that, but we don't have what's necessary. Going into the summer, I call this a summer of paralysis by analysis, or a wait and see summer, because you're not going to do anything until you have the numbers. So the big numbers all came out this week, especially today. They released the numbers for jobs. What are the repercussions from the
No, they're not true. They're not true. They're not true.
Well, they released the numbers, and what the federal economists do, the Federal Reserve does it, all of the different departments they do. They give you running numbers because Wall Street decision makers, they need the natural resource to put in there to run it through their system. But then if there's changes, because you figure stuff out, you don't know everything right away because for instance, the end of the quarter, Daniel, you might see all the closings on day one. So say July 1st, sure. You see all the closings. But it's not going to show you everything because there will be some closings that maybe they don't update it, maybe this, maybe that. So you always give a little bit of lag time in terms of when you're going to catch it. Sometimes there's adjustments, there's this and that. So the job numbers come out today, and as part of the job numbers coming out, they revised the last 2 months to actually reflect what they found. So these were preliminary numbers that got adjusted and revised, which is always the part for the course. But because the numbers came out and they were not to the liking of the current presidential administration and led to a sell-off on Wall Street, because why? Now unemployment rate is going up. At the same time, the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell, old man Powell, who runs it, and he's got board members that vote. At the same time, he made an announcement this week that they are not cutting rates. President Trump is jawboning Jerome Powell, just like he did back in 17 and 18, to avoid what would have been a sell-off, at least in the South Florida condo market, in my opinion. So all this stuff is going on. Job data comes out, and what it shows is we had a net gain over the course of the last 3 months since Liberation Day of about 35,000 jobs, preliminary. President Trump goes off. He decides at 3 o'clock or so, 2 o'clock, to fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So if you don't like the number, fire the person. Now, the discussion that's going on Wall Street, and CNBC's been covering it, and you're going to hear about it all weekend, is going forward, are we going to be able to trust the numbers? Now, nobody had any questions about the GDP numbers for Q2 because they came out and you have people running it and you say, okay, that's fine. But now if the person can be fired and the person who replaces this member of the Bureau of Labor, the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, are you going to have confidence in numbers, or are we going to start to think that the same way they evaluate China? If you ever look at China's economic numbers, right, they're always spectacular.
Any single thing that they say.
Always spectacular. So this is the issue that's breaking right now, and I think it goes hand in hand. And well, first of all, let me have you respond before I take it to the next level. if
Well,
possible.
you were talking about China. It's like when you look at Putin's approval ratings, it's always 99%. If you're going to cheat on a test, you can't get a 99% on it. You got to, I don't know, get a B minus or something. But, even an 80% approval rating would be kind of ridiculous. But yeah, talk about shooting the messenger. I mean, quite literally. Oh, well, I don't, maybe she hung herself.
Well, but understand though, this is going to have a lot of this will have this is a philosophical, psychological type of move. I'm not going to say it's probably worse than if President Trump were to fire Jerome Powell, because if you lose confidence in the numbers,
well,
like
he can't fire Jerome Powell.
well, I
His
know that,
term's going to
but
expire.
well, if he looks for, there's this whole discussion that they spent too much money on the renovation and removing the asbestos and the
Yeah,
central bank's
that's
headquarters.
bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying, but this movement to try to, if we eliminate the facts, and there's a political advisor called James Carville. He was the one who, some crazy redneck from Louisiana. He calls
The
himself a
Raging
redneck type
Cajun.
of thing, Raging Cajun. So somebody said, asked him, if you die, what would you come back as? He said, that's simple, the bond market. Why? Because these people who are investing in the bond market, they're putting their money down and they want data. So the bond market is what drives it. It's far surpasses whatever the stock market is. So what I'm telling you is, if we start to raise issues about the validity and the accuracy of the information, and if you no longer have this transparency, it starts to create doubts. It starts to create skepticism. And if you're moving big tonnage of wealth, are you really going to have the same? Are you really going to take the same shot if you can't necessarily rely on the statistics? And I was a financial journalist 13 years. To me, the numbers are first and foremost. And whenever there is a change, as long as there's an explanation for the change, that's one thing. But if you don't like the numbers and you fire the person who's in charge of it, I got a problem with that.
Or hey, Peter, and I'm gonna trigger you. There's a trigger warning for Peter. So what does that talk about the balance market in real estate? Is it 6 months or is it 9 months? And
So,
we're not gonna fire anybody over this, but if you change the numbers, then does that just make it true? And I'm gonna let Peter talk about this because he has more data than I do. But traditionally speaking, a balanced market in real estate, at least in the condo market, at least in in the general condo market, ultra luxury has its own numbers. Below a certain threshold has its own numbers. But generally speaking, a balanced condo market is how many months, Peter?
6.
6. Now there has been some talk from some pretty powerful folks that suggest that, you know what, I don't think it is 6 anymore. What's it going to be, Peter?
Now they're saying a balanced market is between 6 and 9 months. So they're increasing it by
How
50%.
do you just change that for it's like saying the sun is green.
And herein lies the issue. I wrote a column. I do a newsletter, comes out every Sunday. I like to put it out like middle day, late in the day. So by the time you read it, you're like, you're watching White Lotus or whatever you're watching, you're chilling, you're going to go to bed. And then I hit you with a headline and you're like, what the hell is this? So we put out a column this Sunday. I put out a column this Sunday and basically said, what's going on? The Federal Reserve came out with a report in which they called a condo crisis in South Florida. They talked to a bunch of different people for the report. One of the people I talked to was a gentleman called Ron Sheffield. I know Ron long. I used to interview him when I was a reporter, and then I saw him when I was on the board of directors over at the Miami Associated Realtors for a number of years. So I know him. I have a lot of respect for him. But he's quoted in this Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta report, and Miami falls under the Bank of Atlanta sphere or shadow. And he's quoted saying, well, a balanced market's 9 months, or he's cited saying balanced market's 9 months. It's never been 9 months. It's always been 6 months. And these are fundamentals. These are cornerstones that you make decisions on. I would argue, how do you go forward?
It creates a psychological change in the market.
Yeah, it's completely psychological. And now, so if you were a sell side person, and Ron's firm tends to do sell side, meaning when you go in there to talk to a realtor, they're going to make you sign a commission agreement now because of a settlement related to, the way the realtors were operating. So now when you go to talk to a broker, you got to sign anything to walk into a door. So you're either a buy side or a sell side broker. Seller fiduciary is the seller. Buy side has a fiduciary to the buyer. So in the past, people didn't know what was what. So you could spin things however you want to do it. Now the sell side, I would argue, is starting to feel the pressure because nothing's trading. Supply is too high. months of supply is way too high. So when you say it's 6 months and suddenly it's not convenient enough for what you're trying to pitch, what do? You either work on the product or you change the numbers. So this is something that's really kind of under my skin. So Ron's quoted in the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta report. Miami Herald does a story this week, comes out this week, talk about people who are getting pushed out by what we call the Condo Association financial cliff. They didn't use that term, but they basically wrote the story that we forecasted back a year ago in June of 2024. And they quote somebody, I can say the name or not, it doesn't matter. But she's somebody who speaks a lot to the realtors and gives them the rah type of stuff. She's also saying 6 to 9 months now. So, and then I pull up a press release from the Miami Association of Realtors, and they're saying suddenly 6 to 9 months. So I put all this in my newsletter, and then I asked Google Gemini AI. I said, Google Gemini AI, am I crazy or has something changed? What is the traditional 6 months? And by the way, I put this in my column. I put a screenshot of my question as well as the answer. And Google says traditionally, it has been 6 months. But then according to Google Gemini, and let me just pull this up for you because I think I don't want to misspeak because somebody gets pissed off. So according to Google Gemini, in terms of is the Miami Association of Realtors doing something different? And this is cited in my column. They came out on Sunday. According to Google Gemini, so my question is, can you please tell me the definition of a balanced condo market in South Florida based on months of supply and compare and contrast that with the current position of the Miami Association of Realtors? So Google Gemini basically says traditionally a balanced market is typically defined as having 5 to 7 months of inventory. Some sources specifically specify a range of 4 to 6 months for sellers, while others even more specifically 5 to 6 months. Okay, now the Miami Realtors position states that a balanced market often refers 6 to 9 months of supply. Their report also shows that the current months of supply inventory for existing condominiums in Miami-Dade County is 14.1 months, which indicates a buyer's market. But lo and behold, it also says that currently the Miami Association of Realtors is referring to 6 to 9 months rather than simply 6 months. So
break it down,
okay,
Peter, because
you just
threw a lot of stuff at us.
Yep.
So break it down for what does this mean if I'm a buyer in Miami today?
So what this means is this by changing from 6 months, my opinion, healthy market, balanced market. Remember, less than 6 months, sellers got the advantage, nothing to choose from. You want it, pay big dollars. More than 6 months, buyers got the advantage. I want it, but there's tons to choose from.
I want a discount.
I'm not doing it. Exactly. So by effectively devaluing the balance, I mean, think about taking like a Argentinian peso to the dollar a peg, and all of a sudden it gets the value.
Makes the seller. It gives the sellers more leverage.
Now the sellers are going to be able to say, listen, dude, it's 9 months of supply. That's not necessarily a big deal. So but it's a 50% change.
Right. No, it's a tremendous change.
I mean, this is like market moving. Now anybody who knows what the hell they're doing, they're gonna read right through this. I mean, these are sell side people. They're putting it out there. It's not a big deal. But the issue is that gullible, naive, less informed, or poorly informed person.
Well, that's why you need to have a good buyer broker, right? You need somebody to help you run the comps. That's what Peter and I do, everybody. We help you run the comparables. Peter's going to tell you that building sucks, and he will tell you that building sucks.
Statistically,
and he'll tell you that unit overlooking the dumpster is the best damn unit you're ever going to buy. And
hallelujah.
I'm gonna tend to agree with him. You've changed the way I look at condos, Peter, and I'm learning something from you every single day. But it's the same thing in the single family home market, right? And Peter hates underwriting single family houses. He calls them works of art. But you can value them. And, it's not like we're just pulling a number out of thin air. There are comparables, price per square foot. Does it have a pool? What street is it on? Is it in front of a cemetery? Ooh, spooky. Some people actually love that, by the way. Murder houses? I don't know. Gated community. You can put a value on it. But people engage in real estate transactions throughout their lifetime so infrequently. I'm not saying it's an incredibly complex thing, but folks do it so infrequently that you forget things. And oftentimes it's a lot of money. It's probably the most money you're going to spend in a decade. So when you do go to spend that money or you're looking, you should look to a representative like myself, like Peter, like our colleagues in town. How many realtors are there in town? 45,000 of them. I would only
north of It was like north of 60.
Yeah, well, maybe since the last Miami Realtor renewals came through, it's gone a little down. But Miami Realtors isn't going to report on that. But it's really important, and I really want to hammer that it's really important to have representation, good representation that's looking out for your best interest, so that none of these shenanigans, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, you shouldn't even have to care. You should care, but if you have good representation, it's not your job, it's our job. And we're going to look at it. We're going to run comps for you, and we're going to tell you what something is worth. Does the whole balanced market argument play into it? Sure it does. Sure it does. But it's not black and white. It's not binary. It's not ones and zeros. It's super fluid. Today's inventory isn't tomorrow's, wasn't yesterday's. And with all this new inventory coming up just in the central business district, Peter, what was the number you said last week? How many units are coming online? 4,811 buildings? No.
Yeah.
4,800 units in 11 buildings, guys. And those aren't, all those buildings aren't the same. There's ultra luxury at the Waldorf. There's less ultra luxury somewhere down the street. There's short-term rental and build-to-rent buildings galore. And they all offer a different spice for your given real estate investment portfolio, or if you're an end user and you want to call this place your home. There's a product for everybody. There's a product for the pied-à-terres coming in from Europe and South America, or maybe less so from South America today. Although, speaking of South America, I know I always like to hammer that 2024 numbers for foreign buyers for for condominiums in South Florida has dipped from its peak in 2018 of 50% to 10%. But if you extrapolate the data, if you really dig in there, which is what Peter and I like to do, you know what the international buyers of new South Florida condos are? You know what they represent? 49%.
Wow.
Of new. This is pre-construction.
Yep.
And if you go into certain markets, it's in the 80s and 90s.
But again, though, anything pre-construction, I would not count on. These are surveys. They're effectively surveys. Hedge funds used to pay me. We would call up every month and ask a sales office what are things trading for, what percentage is sold. The number is very fluid. It's always changing, and it's always on the sell side. But listen, Daniel. What I would tell you is, okay, the Miami Association of Realtors is doing a bunch of stuff. They have a chief economist now over there, which I applaud them for. I think it's all great. Why doesn't the association come out with a rules of engagement? Tell us what their position is. Tell us how they're going to view it, and then let us adjust to whatever the rules are, rather than simply happenstance, simply changing or adjusting. Now, maybe I missed something. Maybe Google Gemini AI missed something on the 6 months. Maybe many people in the industry, yourself included, have missed something. But if you're going to make a systematic change, or a change of a benchmark that people evaluate a market, let us know. And this has nothing to do with what happened today at this afternoon when President Trump fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I'm not making a connection. I'm just saying these two are completely separate, but you can see why it would raise skepticism. It would raise concern just about, am I trading off of good information? I'm a big believer. Give me the information, give me the transparency, and people will make a decision. They'll simply adjust the pricing, whatever the numbers are. But if they can't rely on the numbers, where do we go, and why would you buy, and how the hell do you sell pre-construction? I don't understand how you would sell pre-construction.
I'm a buy on truth about jobs, but do I believe the truth? What is the truth? It's the numbers that are coming out by the public servants who are putting those out, supposedly. I don't know.
See, and we're going to a bad place if you cannot rely on government statistics. It kind of reminds me back, and I don't want to be political, but it reminds me back during the pandemic days. They had a count of how many people had COVID or whatever it was, and then lo and behold, they fired the person in charge of it or whatever, and then all of a sudden the state of Florida didn't have the numbers up of COVID. It creates this sort of uncertainty or skepticism or whatever you want to say. And I would just reach out to the industry, and I would ask the industry, whatever the hell you guys decide you want to do, let us know, put it in writing, define a rules of engagement, and then we can adjust, and we can do our variances based on whatever your rules are. But you cannot move this type of stuff and then expect people to simply take it and accept it, and more importantly, believe it. believe it, because I mean, what if the numbers change and all of a sudden you have a fiduciary and you're telling your clients, oh well, listen, it's a healthy market,
Well,
it's
you look
9
like an
months.
asshole. That's what happens.
Well, what happens if you get sued? What happens if they sue you, they depose you, you say it's this, they bring an expert like me, and I say expert like me because I've been admitted to circuit court as well as federal bankruptcy court. So yeah, if an expert comes in and say there's no freaking way, now lo and behold, how's the jury going to rule? I mean, are you spinning it? Are you not? And I'm not an attorney. I'm not practicing law. None of that. But I'm just saying, think about the repercussions if you have a fiduciary now because you have a signed agreement with your customer or client, or your client because they've signed something with you, and you start peddling some of this stuff. Is there any kind of recourse? This is the part that I think a lot of people in the real estate industry really ought to pay attention to, because I'm sure there's some attorneys who would love to take another shot at real estate brokers or realtors, just like they did it, with the settlement nearly, I guess a year ago this month.
Yeah, it was a year ago. It was a year ago.
So we're going to an area that I think transparency. Everybody will only benefit from transparency, but playing shenanigans is not a good thing.
Shenanigans is the word of the day.
Yeah. So I'll step down off my soapbox. I am a buy on the truth. I am a sell on interfering with the statistics, because I think transparency, people will still buy, but they'll make adjustments. And you, Daniel?
Buying the truth. I'm buying the truth, but I'm concerned. I too am concerned, and I think everybody else should be too.
Well, can I give you some good news?
Please do.
This weekend, I'm going on my cricket rant.
He's going to talk about cricket, guys. I'm sorry. I'm kidding. I love it. I got to go to a cricket game with you, Peter. Tell me about it. What's going on?
The West Indies are playing. They're hosting Pakistan, and their home stadium is going to be Lauderhill, Broward County. Sunrise 441. There's cricket matches going on. West Indies always uses Broward County and Fort Lauderdale as one of their home fields, because they do series. Because if you're flying all the way from Pakistan over to the Caribbean, you want to stay for a while. But we got matches going on. But for the first time that I've ever seen, the West Indies, which is a team primarily of former British, part of the British Commonwealth countries, places like Jamaica, Trinidad, stuff like that. But they're actually doing night matches. They had one last night. West Indies lost to Pakistan, but I'm going Saturday night, and they're also doing it Sunday night as well. And they're doing a BOGO special, meaning you buy one, get one free for Florida residents. So anybody interested, go to Wendy's.com. Yeah. And so we're going to pre-party at a place called Joy's, which is a Trinidadian restaurant. So we're going to pre-party there, hit the 8:00 match. There will be music. There will be you'll feel like you went to Antigua.
I feel like in a couple years, you're going to disappear off the face of the earth, and I'm going to hear that you're Satya Nadella, who is the proprietor and owner behind the Seattle Orcas cricket team, and you're a promoter for the Seattle Orcas now. But guys,
I just want to throw it out there. This is the end of cricket for me this summer, and we have to wait till next summer. So,
end of cricket season, the beginning of a hot and spicy hurricane season, but we don't have any storms, knock on wood, in the Atlantic quite yet, but it's coming. It's getting hot and sweltery out there. But that brings us to the end of our hour and 8 minutes. We went a little over. Sorry, folks, if you stuck with us the whole time. Thank you so much. My name is Daniel Hernandez. I am a realtor with Compass, and I am joined with my consigliere, Peter Zalewski, at the MiamiCondo.club. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next Friday. Check us on Substack. Ciao.
Ciao.